Hi everyone, and welcome to XNES's Market Outlook. Today we're looking at some of the key possible ideas for trades this week and some of the narratives that are driving them. And joining us, we have Stanislav Bernachoff. Thank you very much, Stan, for joining us.
Thank you, Michael, for having me.
Firstly, the key possible ideas for this week. What do you think are the instruments that are in focus, and which directions are we possibly looking at over the next few days?
Well, particularly I am looking at Nasdaq USTEC 100 index, which we have in our terminal. So, considering that this week we get the inflation back in play, inflation expectations, and we have actually quite negative sentiment with the market, with the stock market, so I expect to maybe try to sell some bounces to key levels. One of the scenarios is shown here on the chart. So in case it bounces on the US session particularly, so I will try to very carefully pick entry points for short positions. Because if you take a look at what's happening in the stock market right now, we've seen insane volatility with Facebook and other stocks. So that's not a good sign. In a short term, that's a concerning sign. So that's why I would not be surprised seeing Nasdaq testing its previous lows from January, maybe some area below, but that's what in my mind right now.
And the key narrative, or one of the key narratives that's driving this, is expectations being somewhat more hawkish for monetary policy. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so previous week we've been talking about hawkish expectations, but now they seem to be even more hawkish, because if you take a look at this histogram, it's already 28.8%, which means that 30% of traders are convinced that we will have a two-step hike. So not just the single step hike, but a two-step hike, which is more hawkish by definition. And if this trend continues, if the probability of this scenario continues to grow, we might have more pressure on stocks.
And around the inflation release from the USA, what do you think is our game plan? What are we expecting around that important release this week?
Well, let's take a look at the calendar. We'll have CPI release scheduled this week for Thursday. Well, it's 0.4. Previously, it was 0.5. Well, in case it is greater than anticipated, it might add up some pressure and add more fuel to this narrative of the double step hike. And if you take a look at the graph of CPI, so we see that it's already on the highs, but in case it ticks up higher, so that would be quite unusual, because previously it was going down after reaching new highs, and that would be concerning for the market. Not mentioning that we have also 30-year treasury yields growing. They are something like 223. And that's a concern for the market too.
All right, so in summary, the further decline possibly for the Nasdaq is something that we're looking ahead for this week, perhaps. And monetary policy is looking more hawkish than it did before, even with the possibility of a two-step hike being something considered more seriously. And one of the key things to look ahead for around the release of inflation and generally this week is a possible failed bounce by the Nasdaq 100 that might give us an entry to sell. So thank you very much, Stan, for joining and for giving us your valuable insights.
Thank you, Michael. These are our probable scenarios, but of course the situation might change dynamically, so don't forget about that. Manage risk and protect your positions when we have such high volatility. That's essential.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks very much, everybody, and we wish you all the best successful and responsible trading.